Hey folks, how's it going? It's Alejandro again, or Alejandro, whatever you can pronounce, it's good. I am one of the facilitators of DAREarts out west. I'm here in Coast Salish territories, that's the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. These territories are sometimes mistakenly known as Vancouver, BC as well. Now today, we're not going to make a piñata. Today, we're going to do something more active. We're going to engage our entire body. Because today we're going to do boxing. We're going to learn the basic fundamentals of boxing. And you might be asking why? Well, I could share with you my personal story around boxing, but instead, I'll give you this. Boxing is an extremely low budget way of staying active, which you can do by yourself with no equipment and basically in very tight spaces. And especially right now when we're being encouraged to stay home and not go out, staying active and keeping your mind fresh can be very difficult. And I think that's why boxing has been my saving grace these last few weeks. It's helped me keep my body moving, it's helped keep this mind healthier, which I think has let me cope, or has allowed me to cope even better, with what's been going on. So thinking about that, I said, hey, how about I share this with people? Maybe they'll get the same benefits as I am getting. So with that said, let's get into our 5 DAREart words. Now, the first one is discipline. Now, there's a method to what can be a very violent sport. Most people will call boxing the sweet science. And like all sciences, the attention is in the detail. There's small details that you'll see throughout today that can make the difference between being hit and not being hit. Such as where's your shoulder, where's your head, where are your hands, how's your hips, all these little things, keep an eye out them because they'll make the difference. Now our second word of today is confidence. Now, like any science, it takes some time to get it down. You're not going to get it down the first time, and that's fine. That's what confidence is about, I think. It's about knowing that you might make mistakes, but those mistakes are cool. They're part of the learning process because you can get them and you can improve even better. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's how you get better. Now, our third DAREart word is observation. Now, boxing, again, is about hitting and not being hit. And to do that, you gotta outsmart your opponent. And to outsmart your opponent, you have to be studying them the entire time. How do they move? Where do they move? Where are you in the ring? Where are they in the ring? You gotta observe, you gotta study. That's what's gonna make the difference between being an okay boxer and a great boxer. Now our fourth DAREart word is creativity. If you're like me, you're gonna be boxing by yourself most of your time. They actually call that shadow boxing because you are boxing your shadow. Very smart people, these boxers. I know. So to do that, obviously you need to get some practice, and I'll give you some tips at the end and a little drill that you can practice to get your shadow boxing going. But key here is your imagination. You gotta imagine what your opponent is doing and how you would react. So creativity key in our boxing workout today. And our final one is fun. Yes, I know it's corny, but it's true. So listen, if you're gonna dedicate some time to doing this, you're gonna have to enjoy it. Enjoy everything. Enjoy learning mistakes, enjoy learning, enjoy the exercise, and ultimately just enjoy getting the benefits of what boxing can do for you. So with that said, let's get to the structure of today just so you're not lost. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to begin with our stance. We need to know how to stand when we're boxing. It's going to be key. Our whole power, our whole athleticism comes from how we have our feet and our hips and our shoulders. So we're going to have to work on that for a bit. Then, of course, we're just going to stand there. Again, hitting and not being hit. We got to move. So we're going to learn how to move with our stance when we got it down. The third one is we're going to learn 2 basic punches, the most important punches in boxing. The jab and then the cross. If you are left-handed, don't worry, I got you. Don't worry, I know how to do it. And the fourth thing we're going to do is, again, hitting and not being hit. We got to learn how to avoid those punches. So we're going to learn how to avoid them just by pulling out and also by moving our head maybe our shoulders to make sure we can slip past them. And finally, we're gonna do a little drill. So I don't want it just this to be me talking and you simply being there and mirroring me. We're gonna actually, what they call in boxing, spar. I'm gonna throw some punches and you're gonna try to avoid them. You're gonna throw punches and I'm gonna try to avoid them. So with that, let's get going. Alright folks, so I took the hoodie off. It's time to get boxing. First, make sure you got some space around you, a meter in each direction. But after that, I want you to stand in the middle, about shoulder width apart. Now, think about which hand you use to write. For me, it's my right hand. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my right leg backwards. Take a step about shoulder width apart, a little bit more maybe. Again, if you're left-handed, left foot, go back about shoulder width. So take a step back. For now, our feet are pointing forward, but not anymore. With the leg that you took back, those toes, pivot them and try to get your foot at 90 degrees compared to your front foot. Every single boxer who's great in history has had their back foot at 90 or almost 90. It's essential. You're gonna see why a little bit later on, but it has to do with how much torque we can generate on our hips if we got it at 90. Now, after you got that at 90, what do we do with our left foot or our front foot for our left-handed boxers? Well, I always say it should be comfortably forward. So because your foot is at 90, your hips are now pointing diagonally forward. So it's likely that your foot, your lead foot, is going to want to just tuck in a bit. That's perfect. Now, once you tucked it in, if you look down, you should have what in boxing is called a toe-heel alignment. Which is that if you were to draw a line from your lead toe to your back heel, it should be a line, effectively. So you can draw a line there. Mine is almost perfect, so my feet are good. So let's move up. What about our knees? Again, slightly bend them. You don't want to be fully here, because then you can't move. You don't want to be here, because you're like a flagpole. Just somewhat in the middle, so you can move back and forth. So we got our feet, we got our knees slightly bent. What about our core? Again, boxing, getting, not being hit, and hitting. So if I'm like this, I'm an easy target. So what do? Angle a little bit. Angle so you're more razor sharp and you're a harder target. Your body's a harder target. What about our hands now? Well, our hands, we're gonna put them next to our rib cage. Put them there. Your lead hand should slightly be forward and open up your hands. That's gonna give you more coverage. If you're like this, you can see my nose, say. But if I'm like this, my nose is a little bit covered. It's even better. Now, last thing, well, second to last thing, our shoulders. What I want us to do is have a slight incline, like this. That will help with two things. One, my chin is now covered because of my lead shoulder, so they can't get to it. And secondly, my back hand is now loaded up. I got a little bit of weight on it because my shoulders are leaned. So I can come in when I come with it with more force. So I got my hands up, my shoulders slightly angled. What about finally my chin? I don't want to have it here. I want to tuck it in, hide it. Look at my point by looking up. And that's it. That's your stance. That's all you gotta do. Now, we always don't want to stand there. We also want to move with it. So how do we move with our stance? It's simple. Move the leg in the direction that you want to move. Which leg? Well, in the direction that you want to. So how do we move? Well, the trick is to move the leg of the direction that you want to move in. If that sounds difficult, I'll show it. If you want to move forward, you gotta move your lead leg forward. If you want to move backwards, you gotta move your back leg backwards first. If you want to go left, you gotta move your left leg forward first. And if you want to go right, you guessed it, you gotta move your right leg forward. Now, whatever move one leg makes, the other one needs to make, right? That's how we're balanced in our stance. We gotta keep that balance everywhere in the ring. So let's try it. So see, if I want to move forward, move my lead leg first, and my back leg comes. Lead leg first, back leg comes. Let's go backwards. Back leg first, lead leg follows. Back leg first, lead leg follows. Let's go right. Right leg first, other leg follows. Right leg first, follows, left, left. That's it. Let's try it together. Let's see if we can move together, forward and backwards. Let's go forward. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's go left and right now. Let's go left first. Left, left, right, right. That's fantastic. Having our stance set is going to make learning punches so much easier. So let's get to it. The first punch we're going to learn today is the jab. Now, the jab comes from your lead arm. It's the shortest punch to your opponent, but also the one with the longest reach. And that makes it the most important strategic punch in the whole sport. So how do we throw it? You basically have to master two motions. An outward motion, where your hand comes from your stance to the opponent's head, and a retracting motion, where your hand comes back to you to keep you protected. Both of those are equally important, and a great boxer can mix them smoothly. So let's begin with the outward motion, where your hand is going from your stance to your opponent's face. Now, it's going to engage your arm, your shoulders, your hips, and also your lead leg, very important. So with the arm, all you're going to do is just extend your arm from your stance to your opponent's head, making sure your elbow is always behind your hand. That will make sure that your punch is the straightest, the quickest, and the most powerful. Now, as you get to the end of your punch, of your extension, clinch your fist and do a little twist at the end. That will give it more torque, gives it more power at the point of impact. Now, as you do this extension with your arm, your shoulders should move in opposite directions. So your lead shoulder will move towards your punch. Your back shoulder will move away from your punch. That will do two things. One, it will extend your range, and two, it'll keep your chin hidden. Because once I raise my shoulder, you can't see my chin. Now, you can help your shoulders out in this movement by making sure your hips mirror that slight twist. Again, that will give a little more torque. Now finally, as you do that, get your lead leg to take a step forward. Try to land the step when you make impact with your hand. That, again, will get you into range, because the guy is far away. And also, it will give you some momentum because of the falling step. So this is the outward motion. But this is not a fight. This is boxing. So we want to hit, but we also don't want to be hit. So what we need to do now is a second motion, a retracting motion. We have to undo everything we just did. So our hand has to come back. Our shoulders need to go back into their incline. Our hips also back to the angle. And our back leg either needs to, our lead leg, because we just took a step, needs to either come back to our natural stance, or what I'm going to teach you is once you take the step, you come back with your back leg to our stance. So in the end, it kind of looks like this. Bah. Right? I'm taking a step, come in here, bah. Come back with the back leg. Right? Bah. So that's the jab. And have fun. Practice it in different directions. See how you like it. Bah. Try to throw it outward, that way, move a bit, and see how it feels. If the jab is the most important punch in boxing, the rear hand cross is in chapter 2. Now, just like the jab, it has two motions, an outward motion and a retracting motion. And they're very similar to the jab, it's just that they're reversed because it's the opposite hand. So again, it's a straight punch from your stance to your opponent's head. So we're going to extend our arm, making sure our elbow is always behind our hand to maximize the smoothness and power. And when we get to the end, we're going to make our fist and twist. Our shoulders, we're going to do the opposite in the jab. So our rear hand shoulder is coming forward towards the punch, and our lead hand shoulder is coming out of it. You can get a good whip in your shoulders if you whip your hips with it. But here's the trick to the cross. It's in the back foot. You see, to get a good whip in the hips and a good whip in the shoulders, to maximize the power, you're going to have to rotate the back foot. So to do that, we're simply going to take our back toes, pivot on them while we lift our heel off the floor, and that ensures our body follows that. That packs the most power. And so now you see why most boxers have a 90-degree angle on their back foot, because it allows them to put all that power on their rear hand punches. Now, so we are here. That's the outward motion. Again, the retracting motion, we have to come back. So our hand comes back to our face, our shoulder comes back on the incline, our hips back to angle, and our back foot back to 90. Now that we know how to throw properly a jab and a cross, well, we are ready to put together the most common combination in boxing, the jab cross. Now, these two punches go so well together because they're the opposite of each other. So the retracting motion of the jab is at the same time the outward motion of my cross. So it's super natural to put them together. So let's try it out. Come back. Remember to come back with your right hand right after you're done. Come back. There you go. Remember to rotate that leg. Those are some crisp jab crosses you're throwing, and I will let you throw them at me. But before we do that, let's learn how to avoid those punches. Now, the easiest way to avoid a punch is simply to be out of range. If the opponent can't reach us, they can't hit us. And being out of range is basically just moving. And we already know how to move, so I'm not going to cover that. What I'm going to cover instead is actually being in range. So we can hit them, but when they try to hit us, we can avoid it. Now to avoid that, we need to learn how to slip. Slipping is basically a defensive move. It's the name for a defensive move that we do with our body. So straight punches like the jab, like the cross, can whisk past us and not hit us. Now, to learn how to slip, we have to imagine that a straight punch is coming to our head. Now, obviously, we want to move our head, right? But if we just move our head, we're going to be off balance. So we have to imagine that our head is attached to our torso. So we're not simply moving our head, we're moving our head and torso. So the way to properly do this is to point your shoulder to the opponent's hip as we move. So I'll show you. If you're a right-handed fighter and you want to slip right, what you're going to do is you're going to take your lead shoulder and you're going to point it to your opponent's hip, or imaginary hip in this case. You're going to dip it. And if you want to slip left and you're a right-handed fighter, you're going to point your back shoulder to your opponent's hip. Like that. Always keep your hands up. Now you can do a rear guard like you do this if it's a little more comfortable, but keep your hands up to cover. Now if you're a left-handed fighter, just flip that, right? You're here. If you want to slip right, that. If you want to slip left, right? So it might help you with your balance and flow if you also flex the knee of the side of the shoulder you're dipping. So if I'm going to slip right, I'm going to flex the left knee as I dip my left shoulder to the opponent's hip. So I go like this, and I flex the knee a bit. Same for the other one. Slip left, like that. let's try a few of those. Okay, so we've learned how to get into our boxing stance, we've learned how to throw the jab, the cross, and combine them. We've also just learned how to slip those punches. So I want to finish off the video by doing a back and forth. I will throw a jab cross to you, and then you will throw a jab cross to me. But I don't want us just to attack though. I also want us to defend. So when I throw my jab, I want you to slip right. When I throw my cross, I want you to slip left. Now why those directions? Well, you always want to slip on the outside of your opponent because it's safer. One, because you're far away from my backhand, and also because you're set up for your counter. Now, if you catch that you slipped inside and you're here, that's fine. You did what you wanted to do. You wanted to avoid my punch, and that's good. But you just have to be extra alert because my backhand is right in your line of sight. That's a dangerous punch, as we saw, because the 1-2 is very natural. So with that said, let's give it a try. Alright, so let's get going. We'll go slow first, okay? So we'll just go ba, 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 ba. That tempo. Ba, 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 ba. Good. Your eyes on your opponent. 2 more. That's what I like. Good job. Now, you can do that drill with people that you know. Ooh, look at those right there. Or it can be the basis for your own shadow boxing routine. If you want to make it more interesting, see if you can move as you throw your 1-2s. That'll make it a better drill even. Alright, so these were some of the basic fundamentals to boxing. I hope you enjoyed it and perhaps were even intrigued by a potentially new hobby. But either way, we exercise more than just our minds or our bodies today. Because we also worked on attributes that make us great leaders in the community. When we observed, when we paid attention to details, when we reacted with confidence and acted with creativity, when we were, say, avoiding punches, all these are not just the basics to boxing, but they're also the basics to being great listeners and great communicators, which I know we all are. So I'm happy that we got to spend some time together, and I really hope to see all you soon. So stay safe out there.